right, man. These are the fun ones to do. Wolves advance to the Western Conference Finals in back-to-back seasons. Close out a series at home for the first time in 21 years. And in my mind, it's the star player's best game of the playoffs. Maybe one of the best games of the playoffs, I think, depending on how you look at it. It was a dominant one. I think from start to finish, there was a little bit of hesitation there in the fourth quarter where you held your breath a little bit. But a 121 to 110 win for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they're headed to the Western Conference Finals in back-to-back years. And there's a couple things to this. And one, you have Chris Finch after the game talking about how things take time, talking about Anthony Edwards' 12 assists tonight ties his career high, and how he got essentially everybody involved. You'd think maybe coming into tonight that it was going to be, was it a 40-point game for Anthony Edwards that was going to be incoming? Was it, maybe going to be a one of his classic 30-point, 10-rebound type games that he's been kind of having this playoffs? No. I mean, he had a hyper-efficient 20 points, 12 assists, was 3 rebounds away from a triple-double. And, man, he had a lot of help from his teammates, too. I think that was a pretty dominant effort. A couple things we'll talk about in this specific stream. I think we have to talk a little bit about second chance points. That was the one thorn in the side of the Wolves tonight, and I think that's got to be something when you go into the Western Conference Finals, you have to tighten that up or you're going to be in deep trouble. We'll talk a little bit about the tone setters of this game. I think it was a couple of former Utah Jazz players that really set the tone in this one for the Wolves, and I think you have to feel really, really good about that heading into next series. And we'll talk about him. I mean, I thought it was maybe his best game of the playoffs. If not the best, it was for sure in his top 3. I wouldn't even say that that's arguable at this point. Julius Randle, he just continued his dominant stretch. What a classic, at this point, I guess you could say vintage performance from him. We'll have some Jimmy Butler therapy. I think that's important tonight. I think that if you're a Wolves fan and you've been through some of those mid 2010s and even 2010s with full 2010s issues, and you have scars that have maybe healed now from a lot of those battles and a lot of those really dark times. This is one of those nights that I think you can kind of celebrate, because there was somebody who embarrassed this organization a few years ago, and maybe had it thrown back in his face a little bit tonight. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll preview the Western Conference Finals. I mean, we have a game 6 that's going to be coming up here between Denver and Oklahoma City, and it's sure to be a good one. Talk a little bit about that, kind of see it. In my mind, I'll preview it from the frame that it's going to be Oklahoma City, based on everything that happened last night. I certainly wouldn't count Denver out of that one, but I think it does look a little bit more towards Oklahoma City right now. So a few things that we're going to cover here. Let's just kind of go through game flow to start things out. Wolves come out with a lot of really good energy, frankly, in the first quarter. I thought some tone setters early on were Rudy Gobert and Mike Conley. Rudy Gobert had 8 points, 3 rebounds in the first quarter. Let up a lot of cheap rebounds. Certainly not void of criticisms in this one, but came out and was maybe one of the more dominant players for the Wolves just on the offensive end. Thought they ran a lot of really good stuff for him. Thought he caught the flow of the offense really, really well early on. There was clearly a part of the Wolves' game plan heading into tonight that exposed the fact that the Warriors didn't really care about the dunker spot. I mean, you had multiple lobs that were thrown up to Jaden McDaniels tonight and Rudy that were just unattended because the ball handler heading into the paint, whether it was Mike or Ant or whoever it may be, drew a lot of attention. And the Warriors dared them to throw the lob, and they did. And that was a major bugaboo for Golden State early on. Just very easy points that were coming for the Timberwolves. So Rudy finishes with 8 points, 3 rebounds, has that stat line for most of the second quarter. I thought he was big, though, in setting the tone for the game. And we'll talk a little bit about second chance points later on. Mike Conley, man, what a game. What an unbelievable game from Mike Conley. came out right away and set the tone. I mean, he relocated on the perimeter for a lot of the evening. Was super good moving off the ball. He actually ended up shooting 5 for 7, 4 of 6 from 3, had 16 points, but had 11 in the first half. And he was a deadeye. He started 4 for his first 5 from 3. And he was getting wide open looks. I mean, the gravity that Ant was pulling with him early on in that second half completely changed the complexion of that first half. And Ant, after the third quarter, had 9 assists. He only had 3 in the fourth quarter, 3 of his 12. He very easily could have set his career high. Kind of from there, I mean, it was the Warriors that was anytime the Warriors got back into the game, it was because they were getting cheap points off of rebounds. I mean, the Wolves controlled the half court offense for a lot of the first half. Ran some really clean stuff. Like Dante DiVincenzo got loose a little bit. Had a nice game for him. He ended up 5 for 7, but I thought in the first half he really came out and set the tone really well. The half court offense was really efficient. I mean, the Wolves were able to get to essentially whatever they wanted. It's a Warriors team that was super tired, man. Like, and Steve Kerr talked before the game, and even if Golden State were to win tonight, you go back to San Francisco on Saturday for Game 6. I think it's pretty pessimistic that Steph Curry's back for that one. And frankly, it was a little bit of a defeated pregame press conference from him. I think the Warriors kind of knew where they were at. They were kind of ready to squaring up to throw one last punch, but looked tired. I mean, perimeter defense was off all evening for them. Wolves are kind of able to get to the elbows, get to the heart of the defense, and find cutters and find open shooters. And it was a large reason for Ant's assist total. So you go into the third quarter, you increase the lead 20 points to 20 points. I think it peaked at 21. And it's where things kind of started to become a little bit loose. I mean, you had some really bad turnovers. I thought in the half court, Podziemski was playing some pretty good defense, picking up full court. You had, Jimmy Butler was able to kind of get his hands on a couple loose basketballs. Even had Buddy Hield diving around a little bit. And the Warriors in the fourth quarter get the lead down to 9 with about 9 minutes left. And that's the point where you're saying, okay, all right, this is becoming a little bit precarious. I mean, we've seen this script before where these 15-point leads, they dwindle down to 9. They dwindle down to 8, and then they dwindle down to 5, and there's more and more bad possessions that happen as you get further and further down the stretch. But true to theme, you have to give the Wolves credit where it's due, man. And Chris Finch is down there talking right now about how these things take time. Every part of the game takes time. Team defense takes time to be able to come together. Team offense takes time to figure out where people are going to be on the court and figure out their rhythm and where they like to get the ball. And that's the same for clutch time, man. I mean, that's the ultimate measuring stick for getting to know each other offensively. What do they like to get to? Where do they like to go? What shots do they like? And sure enough, when there's 9 minutes left in the game, Ant comes down the floor. Julius sets a screen for him. He gets the right elbow 3 that he loves and seems to hit at about a 60% rate. Brings the lead back to 12. Warriors get the ball, come back down, and Jimmy Butler turns the ball over to guess who? Jaden McDaniels, who comes up with a steal off a dribble handoff. And he's wide open for a dunk on the other end. And just like that, the lead goes back to 14. And it was essentially at that point that for me, I thought the game was essentially over. You kind of play with fire a little bit and get things down to 9. That's where you get a little more worried. But the Wolves were able to close it out again. This isn't going to register as a clutch time game, but I certainly think that's this would be a de facto clutch time game, in my eyes. Let's take a look at some of the game stats here, and we'll go over a couple of the key contributors. We'll break down Ant a little bit more here as we move forward. Jimmy Butler, we'll talk about him a little bit later. He played 41 minutes. He was just completely gassed. Took 11 shots. Draymond Green, again, just kind of spent 1 for 6 from 3, kind of spent everything in game 1 with his 4 for 10 performance. Podziemski finally decided to have his game tonight in game 5, just had a pretty horrific series up until tonight, decided to put 28 on the board. And Kuminga, the Warriors, I think, are now 0-7 in games in the playoffs that he plays 20-plus minutes in. He finishes with 26 and a -12. I think he's actually a pretty good player if you can run stuff for him to get downhill. That's someone who, if I'm the Warriors, I look to maybe move this offseason for a dive big or another supplementary piece that can maybe help Steph and give the Warriors some size. Looking at the Timberwolves side of things, pretty complete effort up and down the board. Naz is your only player that actually ends up in the minus tonight. I thought it was a pretty bad game for him. I think he would be the only one that I would grade out poorly. Nikhil essentially non-existent. I think he was a pretty much a net neutral. But Naz, man, I mean, he typically does pretty well against the Warriors too. It's a team that he looks forward to playing. He finishes with 8 points. He's the only player on the Wolves with a minus total. And frankly, I think that's a reflection on his defense. Thought Naz tonight was way out of sorts defensively, both off the ball and on the ball. I think off the ball, you look at some of those possessions in the second quarter, I think he just lost his assignment, man. He was getting back cut on, wasn't really effective in rebounding the basketball, and was just kind of scrambling. He was kind of getting the defense into a scramble because I think he just was ultimately losing his guy. So it was a rough one for him off the ball. And on the ball, too, the Warriors were getting free runs to the basket and kind of abusing that matchup. Draymond Green, a couple very easy baskets going to the rim when Naz was on him. Same with Jonathan Kuminga. Kuminga specifically, I want to say, got about 6 to 8 points in the second quarter just by driving on the Naz Reid matchup. So I think moving forward, you got to be pretty careful about how he's used defensively, because it just wasn't a particularly good Naz defensive series in general. Did make a couple nice blocks here and there, but ultimately when you come down to it, he was a bit of a problem with some of these quicker wings, and even let Draymond Green go by you, it's maybe a little bit of a sign of foot speed. Mike Conley, unbelievable game. Gobert finished with 17 points. 8 of those being in the first quarter. Thought he was really good. Thought he was really, really good. And down the stretch too, it was a situation where when the Warriors were making their run, Naz was on the floor, and that was kind of a situation where kind of whispered over to Ryan, Jack Borman, who was sitting next to me, and said, you know, it's a situation here, you got to put Rudy back in the game. And not only did Finch put Rudy back in the game, he put the big lineup in. I mean, it was Rudy at the 5, it was Randall at the 4, and it was Jaden at the 3. And that's ultimately the lineup that closed the game out. I mean, you had Rudy in there for defensive insurance. He actually was satisfactory finishing the basketball around the rim tonight, which is not typically something that can be said about him. Thought he was fantastic. I mean, there's a reason that he finished the night plus 21, paired with Ant's plus 20. Let's take a look at some of the team stats too. This is kind of where things get a little bit interesting. Spoiler alert: second chance points were they're not necessarily in the Wolves' favor. It was a pretty pitiful night on the glass for the Wolves, and especially after making the Warriors miss once, they never really made them miss twice. Podziemski leads the Warriors in scoring with 28, but overall, you want to know how you overcome a 27-2 second chance points deficit? You know, how you end up being minus 25 in second chance points and still decisively winning a basketball game? You shoot 62% from the field and 41% from 3. You completely dominate the inside. And that's the main thing right there that I think tonight came down to. At the end of the day, all of this stuff about 27-2 second chance points, even allowing this Warriors team to get 50 points in the paint. I don't want to say none of it mattered, but it really didn't. Because the Wolves just have better personnel, man. They just have better personnel. With Steph Curry not on the floor, this Warriors team is completely outgunned. You have a wave of Rudy and Julius. They control the paint pretty well to start. Then you bring in another wave, and then you have Jaden McDaniels play a little bit of 4 minutes. And then you have Dante come in, and he has a nice game shooting the ball. He kind of finally shows up to the party. The Wolves just have dudes, and the Warriors did not. I mean, you had Quentin Post minutes tonight, like extensive Quentin Post minutes. You had more Pat Spencer showings on the Warriors' end. Like, that's how you lose second chance points by 25, and you still end up decisively winning a basketball game and, frankly, controlling it from start to finish with maybe a little bit of breath holding with 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So that's really the main thing that stands out. And also maybe one thing to point out, too, is 36 assists from the Wolves. Just another really team effort on the offensive end. Like, I think the other thing, too, is when the Wolves got away from themselves a little bit later in that game, when it got to be a 20-point lead, there was less swing and more maybe one pass shots or no pass shots. And as Chris Finch has said for over 2 years now, when the Wolves blow games and it doesn't look very good, that's typically what happens. You get out of your sorts offensively. So to have 36 assists, that's very, very encouraging, and especially with 12 of those coming by way of Anthony Edwards. Just a couple additional things. Like, I think Nikhil is just wanted to underlyingly highlight Nikhil because he's had a very interesting series. 2 very, very, very nice performances in 5 games. 3 very, very puzzlingly off performances in 5 games. It's been a really interesting series for him. And I think when you look at things ultimately, Western Conference Finals here coming up, I would imagine it's against Oklahoma City. It's going to be another series where he's very much so needed. And when you're looking at what this team is going to do in the offseason, with the ability to sign Julius Randle, that's going to become harder and harder to do. And so the Western Conference Finals and this possible Oklahoma City series is going to be very, very much so a telltale sign. Let's talk a little bit about Anthony Edwards. Again, in my mind, for sure, a top 3 playoff game for him so far in this season. In my mind, I would even say it was his best. 3 rebounds away from a triple-double, ties his career high in assists with 12, 20 points or 20-plus points. And frankly, like, I think the best way to put this one would be mature. It was mature. He read the defense extremely well. The Warriors were kind of doing a mix of throwing 2, trapping him right after he got past half court. And he was still able to find his way into the paint, and ultimately his finishing was much, much better tonight. But the way he's computing the game right now is at a completely different level. I mean, specifically to Mike. I mean, again, like I said, at the end of the third quarter, he had 9 assists. And Mike Conley was the main beneficiary. Make no mistake about it. He was a main beneficiary of Anthony Edwards tonight. Chris Finch just talked before about how Jaden McDaniels is the measuring stick of flow and ball movement in the offense. I would argue tonight that would be Mike Conley. Mike was 5 of 7. He was 4 of 6 from 3. Started out 4 of 5 from 3, and was really, really good and just relocating on the perimeter and playing off of Ant, especially in the first half there. He finished with 16 points, was a +4. Actually, like I said early on in the third quarter, we have a possible Mike Conley triple-double watch. He had 6 rebounds, 8 assists. I mean, a really solid stat line from him. But that's the type of player that benefits from Anthony Edwards reading the defense all the way down the floor and getting the ball out of his hands, man. I mean, there's nothing better than seeing, what is it, 3, 4, 5, 6 Timberwolves in double figures. 6 of the 8 that played tonight in double figures. That's what happens when the player who gets 2 on the ball almost every single time down the floor makes the right read. And is, you want to talk about this team possibly taking it to the next level from last year? Anthony Edwards reading defenses is the key to that. Last year in the Western Conference Finals, I mean, we can talk about how good Luka Doncic was all we want. At the end of the day, Anthony Edwards crippled the Wolves' offense by dribbling to the elbow, picking up his dribble, and turning the ball over more times than he probably should have. And that's a clear step that's being shown from him right now. So there's Ant. Couple boards away from a triple-double. Top 3 playoff game from him so far this season. So yeah, man, it's this team will go as far as he takes them with his playmaking chops. I mean, there's no question that this team is full of guys who can make shots when they're in rhythm and when given the opportunity. 37-year-old Mike Conley was one of them. So there's no question that this is going to be a team that goes as far as Ant takes them. I'll put this up from Leo. Luka Doncic was I can't confirm that, but there have been murmurs, Leo. But we can confirm. But there are some murmurs that he was maybe touching every single microphone and did possibly bring it over. Let's talk a little bit about Julius Randle. I mean, just the absolute dominance that he's continued to display this postseason. Another unbelievable night from him. I think that we have the most viral moment of the playoffs on the Wolves side so far, courtesy of Julius Randle, courtesy of a Julius Randle parking lot 3. I would pretty close to the logo right above the break early on in the game. I mean, there's just a lot going on in that play. You have Julius backing up. You have Steph shaking his head. Let's see if I can put this on screen here. Sorry, I'm one man banding it, folks. We're doing our best here. The Julius Randle play that really set the tone early on in the game was a 3 that happened right inside the logo. The subsequent celebration and Stephen Curry, frankly, saying that does not happen, and I don't agree. But what parlayed from that was a 42-minute night from Randle, 13 of 18 from the field, 29 points, and he got to the line once. He shot 1 free throw, and it was off of an and one. I mean, if the Wolves even put up a fight here in the Western Conference Finals, this is a top 25 NBA player. You could even make an argument at this point in time that he could be top 20. The level that he has reached in this postseason. I asked him after it was game 2. It was another really nice, solid game from him. Just distributing the ball, being a break starter, pushing the pace, which is something this team desperately needs. Like, what's your thought process when you're heading down the floor and you guys are in a really good rhythm and you have a mismatch? because he had a mismatch every single time he touched the ball this series. Every single time he touched the ball on the offensive end, he had a mismatch. Whether it was Jimmy Butler, whether it was Jonathan Kuminga, whether it was Kevon Looney. I mean, every single person that the Warriors threw at Julius Randle this series was a mismatch. And in order to prevent him from scoring, you needed to bring two guys, which they were reluctant to do because that leaves another weapon open on the perimeter. And what Randall said was, I'm just taking what the defense gives me, which is a diplomatic way of saying, yeah, this team is kind of barbecue chicken. Because when you are going to single guard Julius Randle with Jimmy Butler or Jonathan Kuminga, someone who probably has maybe, I would guess, 50 pounds on ish, it's not going to work out very favorably. It just isn't. It's a really good night for him, man. I mean, if he can keep this going, it is legitimately, I mean, he's really legitimately entering top 20 territory. It's not even like early on, the shot selection is a little bit questionable. A few more threes than I typically would like from him. A few more moving mid ranges than I'd really like from him. Like kind of more heat check shots that like perhaps I could maybe do without. But when they're going in, I can't really complain. Ryan's going to be coming up here pretty soon. So again, another unbelievable Julius Randle game. I want to get to Jimmy Butler, man. 17 points tonight, or minus 17 tonight for him. A game low between both the Wolves and Warriors. Said infamously once upon a time that the Timberwolves wouldn't be able to win without him. He gets closed out in 5 games at Target Center. Scores 17 points, shoots 11 shots, goes 4 of 11, and is 36% from the field. Not a performance from someone who says an organization could not win without you. He was clearly a little bit hampered, clearly a little bit tired, but Ryan Eichten 100% worn
I get
down.
the slide in.
Yeah, there you go.
Chris Collins were sliding.
There you go. You deserve it.
Sure, I'll take it.
Not the best performance from Jimmy Butler tonight.
No, I don't know if he'll come up with excuses or what happened there, but maybe it's too much to expect from him in his age and his point in his career. But with Steph out, they just needed more from him.
Mm-hmm.
They needed him to.
You need to go down swinging more than going 4 for 11 from the field.
Right, and if it ended up being 5 of 19, and I think he'd warrant the excuse of Steph was out. What was he supposed to do? But like, it's almost like didn't even try or didn't give them the way he was playing out there didn't give them a chance to win any of these last 2 games.
He ceded a lot to Jonathan Kuminga, and that was something that maybe you shouldn't do if you're notorious for performing well in the play.
And he was good in this series, at least offensively. But if the sentence and he ceded a lot to Jonathan Kuminga, it's over.
Yep. Anything notable from Chris Finch? We talked a little bit about how he's mentioned like trusting the process, like how, and I broke down kind of how it took time on the offensive end, on the defensive end for this team. Like it took a full 82 games for this team to figure out where each other likes to be on the floor, where they want to be on the floor, and what gets the job done. And it sounds like that was kind of the theme of Chris Finch's press conference tonight.
Yeah, a lot of it was just you get to see the pride in what hit the players and his staff were able to do with this team. There's just so many points of this season where the outcome we saw tonight would have just seemed impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Not them winning the series and making the conference finals. Obviously, beating a Curryless Warriors team isn't some grand achievement, but to get back to where they did a year ago, obviously I would argue the path was a lot easier than it was a year ago for sure. For them to accomplish that is really impressive. I said so many times during the season, like the goal of this season at this point, as it seemingly isn't going to be a title team necessarily, was get Anthony Edwards as many playoff reps as possible. And they've absolutely done that. Whether they lose the next series, like all the Lakers series, this series, whatever, Denver, OKC next, like they've earned Ant. You can just see Ant leveling up every single playoff game, every single playoff series he gets, he levels up. So for them to accomplish that and to get him, they've played 10 playoff games now, they'll have a minimum of 4 more, hopefully a long series or a series win. But yeah, the other thing was Finch said before the season, he came up to the team and said, was this a team that happened to make the Western Conference Finals, or was this a Western Conference Finals team? And so I think they answered that tonight, that this team, they've only the Celtics and the Pacers have had as many playoff wins as them the past 2 seasons. They've been one of the best teams in the NBA for 2 straight seasons. Really, for not many teams have made the playoffs 4 years in a row, and they're set up very well. So it's a lot of it was just like from the players and reflecting back on where this franchise was half a decade ago, even a couple years ago when they traded for Rudy. It seemed like everything was in a tough spot. Even a few weeks ago, a few months ago, they were far from guaranteed to get out of the play-in tournament or even to make the playoffs. Yeah, it's been an incredible journey of a season. Incredible. I mean, first time in 21 years this team has closed out a playoff series at home. Last time KG was up on the scorer's table.
Teaches you a lot about, yes, how long it takes for things. It teaches you to not be hasty, even in 20-game sample sizes. The calls for Chris Finch's job because the offense was looking stale early on in the year. Those clearly look dumb now. I mean, some of the sets that they talked a little bit about it earlier, but some of the sets they ran early on in the game to get Rudy free, to find him in the dunkers area, for Dante to kind of run down the lane and get loose a little bit for him, which was really nice to see, something that hadn't been done previously. I mean, there were deliberate things that this coaching staff did to get players who were struggling in this series some reps and some buckets to get some confidence moving forward where they're going to be needed in the Western Conference Finals. It's a really good coaching staff. And Julius Randle too, man. Like someone who was all the way out the door in February, I thought was for sure going to be gone by the deadline.
There's talks of like attaching picks just to make sure. I thought this was always done, but like, or to just salary dump him so they wouldn't. There was talks of that, or at the very least, like just trading him for any rotational big they can find, and that obviously looks silly. I mean, I think this fan base has never been so happy to be so wrong about a player. Than with Julius Randle. I think maybe the Wolves fan base is uniquely positioned to do that in any of the Minnesota sports.
Possibly.
I don't see the Vikings or Twins fans. I mean, Buxton is having a great season. And you still get the crap in the social media. Kirk was fantastic in playoff games and fans would go right back to hating on him. I don't know enough about the Wild to break, but like this fan base is special to me. Obviously I cover the team, so it's going to be my. But I mean, for most of my life I was a bigger Twins fan than a Wolves fan. Even when the Wolves were good when I was a kid. And this fan base is just it's unique in its standing in this city. I think especially with just the recent stretch of winning, but it's even through the losing. It's a fun group of people. It's a fun atmosphere at Target Center. There's been some crappy games I've been to. This is my 6th season in parts covering games in this arena, all part time. But really, this is the first full time season for me. Second writing, but I did 4 seasons doing stats for like 20% of games, and I've seen most of those seasons has been pretty bad basketball. Not most, but the pre-pandemic season or the bubble season or whatever. So to get here and for this team to be on the stretch of winning that they've had is just, it's surreal. I just want people to like not take it for granted. Like I get that they didn't play necessarily well in this series, and Curry going out. I'm certainly not. I still think the Wolves win the series if Curry is healthy, but to think that like that was a very the Wolves won the series halfway through game 1.
Yeah,
the series was over right then.
Yep.
I mean, look at tonight. The Wolves turned it over 20 times. They were minus 24 second chance points, and they won going away, even with a terrible
minus 25 at 27-2 at the end of the game. Gross. Just unbelievable.
Just gross. So, I hope people can, and the team will do this too, enjoy this one. Enjoy making the Western Conference Finals again. It doesn't happen every year. 4 teams get to do it every year.
Yep.
Enjoy it. And we'll see maybe tomorrow or on Sunday if what the matchup is. I would guess Oklahoma City at this point, but I'm certainly not going to doubt the big Serbian dude in Denver. But yeah, I don't take it for granted. I mean, yeah, they didn't play well, but if I told you how many years ago that the Wolves would win a second round playoff series in 5 at home, and people would be, and a fairly reasonable reaction would be like a shrug, like, well, yeah, that was they were supposed to do. Well, I mean, that the fact that we got there is just incredible.
Yeah, it's a sustained stretch now. There is proof out there of success that has been put out there by this coaching staff. Regardless of the roster, I mean, there were times this season where this team was pretty beaten up injury wise, and there is proof of winning with this organization now. Which, like you said, it is, say that 3 times and flashback 10 years ago and see if that's something that you would have believed when you were watching Cat Andrew Wiggins.
Trevion Graham brick threes.
Yeah, Trevion Graham.
That was my first season brick threes. Sitting at Media Row doing stats was
Shabazz Napier.
Yeah.
We could go on and name random Timberwolves, even the Zach LaVine, Karl-Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins core that was blowing games in second halves. I mean, this just did not seem like a conceivable thing that was going to happen. And you look now, it's not only the fact that you have what looks to be a generational player in Anthony Edwards, but you have so many different pieces and personnel that you can match almost any team in the conference with, any team in the other conference with. You want to play fast? We got that. You want to play set defense? We can do that too. There are lots of different things that this team can deploy, and they are very well positioned for playoff basketball and the different paces that teams can play while still imposing their will and hitting shots. And there's going to have to be some people who come to the party here. Like, Rudy's going to have to rebound better. There's no two ways about it. He's going to have to rebound better. Naz Reid is going to have to play better. He was not good tonight. He did not rebound the ball well. He was not good defensively.
Getting blown by.
Awful. He was awful defensively. Like, there are people on this team who are going to, Nikhil, he has to be more consistent. There have to be players who are more consistent and overall play better. But this team is very well positioned moving forward, especially this season, for what could possibly come in the conference finals. Let's just do a quick preview of the conference finals. Let's just assume it's Oklahoma City, because I think that's kind of how this is going to
be. The biggest thing for Oklahoma City to me, and this is their last 2 wins have shown you that this isn't as big of a deal as they don't have a lot of experience. Caruso and Shea are their only guys that are at any reason battle tested in the playoffs. I almost think have you played in the playoffs for 2 different teams, or it's like Shea's played in the playoffs twice for 2 different teams for with the Clippers and the Thunder. Caruso's been on the Lakers and the Thunder. The Thunder for the first time this year. The Wolves' almost entire roster is littered with guys that Rudy has made the conference finals now 3 different times with 2 different teams. Mike, I think conference finals 3 different teams with Memphis, and that was an interesting. He talked about that a big playoff series in the start of the Golden State dynasty was what I think of as the Tony Allen series, where the Memphis goes up 2-1. It's this Golden State, not this Golden State, but the original Golden State dynasty. Memphis has them up 2-1, and the whole game plan was sag off of Tony Allen. So Mike talked about that. Like, that was a good full circle moment for him, for able to beat the Warriors after that. And then they also talked about, if you guys remember the bubble, Mike missed a buzzer-beating 3 in Game 7 that would have beat the Nuggets, who ended up making the conference finals instead of them. Rudy, obviously, those guys with Donovan Mitchell and Mike too, and that Utah franchise, those guys have been through battles. I think Julius Randle was in the playoffs with New Orleans. Oh, well, the Knicks.
For sure, New York. Yep, for sure, New York. The Knicks was not very good.
For sure, and that's another thing. Even especially think about New York and Cat. I'm just saying guys aren't playoff players. I'm done.
Yeah,
you are until you aren't. And then it's so matchup dependent. It's so team dependent. Cat was terrible in the playoffs for the first couple of years, and now is a win away from his second straight Western Conference Finals. And last year he guarded Durant and Jokic on the way to. So the Wolves got a lot of vets, and they got the young guys. That's going to be the big thing for Oklahoma City. Although their last 2 wins have been very impressive. They've been down in the fourth quarter and been able to come back. So Oklahoma City is going to be tough. They have the greatest regular season plus minus in the history of the league. Net rating wise, only like the 90s Bulls are better than like they're an incredibly good team. That'll be tough to beat. Like you mentioned, the Wolves will have to play far better than they did in this series.
Much better.
Denver would apply the same thing. I think you certainly got to be cheering for Denver to win Game 6 to push that series into 7. But even if Denver wins that series somehow, that's clearly like the preferred matchup. Is not the pushover by at any means like we may have thought before the series when that was a potential first round matchup. But certainly that would be a preferred matchup, and the Wolves have shown that they can beat that team, and it'd be like the third straight series against a team that like just doesn't have enough rotation guys. So, but the Thunder are fairly heavily favored to finish that series off.
Yeah, and I think too at the end of the day, frankly, when you really want to look at it, the Thunder could be a little bit more of a favorable matchup because there's not a single person in their right mind who would pick the Wolves in that series.
They'll go back to being underdogs, which they've certainly.
I would say
better.
The Thunder. I'm going to go ahead and do a Bill Simmons and guest lineup, but the Thunder are favored at a 170 clip,
higher
at minimum.
Higher. If you go by, I looked at it yesterday. The Thunder were title favorites, like not just favorites, but like minus odds to win the title before the 2 games tonight. So I doubt much changes there. But like the Thunder are gonna be like minus 200 favorites or more.
Very well could. And you want to talk about the ESPN crew screenshot that Chris Finch put up on his PowerPoint in round 1, talking about
we're getting another 13-0. I think.
The Lakers getting unanimously picked. I think it's going to be the very similar situation here for Oklahoma City. You might get 2 in favor of the Wolves just to be contrarians, but
shout out Tim Bontemps.
Yeah.
What I always laugh about with the social media graphic is ESPN later updated that because 2 people added and Bontemps picked the Wolves over the Lakers. So it's a little bit of like picking and choosing which screenshots you want. Like you can find an 11-1 Lakers, but
yep. And like we've said, the Wolves are going to need to play better. There's no 2 ways about it. Just basic things, rebounding, defense, like letting people get to the heart of your defense is not going to be a favorable thing against a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander team. There will be things that they need to clean up. They're going to need players like Dante and Nikhil to be more consistent in the next series. But at the end of the day, the Wolves are going to the Western Conference Finals, and that's the story for the second straight year. They've just closed out a home series, or a series at home for the first time in 21 years. The last time that happened, Kevin Garnett was right across the court there on top of the scorer's table after he closed out Sacramento in the Western Conference semifinals. And you got to celebrate tonight. Like tonight is one thing that you go to bed and you say, yeah, I get another Western Conference Finals this year. And not everyone gets to say that. Not even Celtic fans get to say that they're going to another conference finals this year. Well, knock on wood. We'll see. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of pressure to win Game 6 for New York. But not everyone gets to say that. And tonight, Timberwolves fans do. And this is me editorializing, but we all deserve it. You just do. So, with Ryan Eichten, Andrew Carlson, Canis Hoopus, signing off from Target Center. And we'll see you for the Western Conference Finals.
Go Wolves.
Ayoo!